Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Ali Haji, who's the CEO and Director of Ion Energy. Ali, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are welcome, and I'm excited to talk to you about your company. I saw the intro video on your website, and I see that you guys have some exciting things going on as leaders in your industry. So give us a little bit of your background and what is Ion Energy?
Of course. I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya. So very much, the African continent, and I've been in mining since essentially for the last 4 decades in Zambia. We didn't quite intersect with respect to our business proposition. I did go over to Canada. I went to Western and then worked for Invesco, a global asset manager, for about 13 years in multiple different roles. I handled M&A with respect to AIG's real estate business in Asia. Came back to Canada to work on Morgan Stanley Van Kampen's acquisition by Invesco, and then was stationed in London, England, co-leading a center of excellence in the investment operations space. So a vastly different sort of background with respect to those that would be deemed mining, but I think it's important to note that it does run in my DNA.
Yes.
When I moved over to Canada in 2016, I was looking for opportunities, but I land in ATMA Capital Markets, which is a capital advisory here in Canada. And I was sent to Mongolia alongside some of my peers to help acquire a gold asset from Centerra Gold that would have potentially come into production and now is in production in Mongolia. And on that visit, recognizing that Mongolia is 1.5 million square kilometers with only about 3% of the landmass explored, there was a vast opportunity there for us to look for lithium, given that all elements are cyclical in nature. So in 2017, I co-founded Ion Energy that we're talking about here today, alongside Matthew Wood, my chairman, and Anil Varaj, one of my directors. And we now currently control 110,000 hectares of highly prospective lithium licenses that we took public in August 20. We drilled in excess of 300 holes across both of our assets. So that's sort of the background.
Yeah, that's a great background. I know you mentioned, like the non-traditional way of coming up through the mining world. It's not like you had generations of family that were in mining per se, but one of the things that jumped out at me is you've got the background in asset management and mergers and acquisitions. Well, that's exactly what you're doing. You are managing assets. And now they just happen to be mines and precious metals and things like that. So I think that background is perfect for what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about the focus now. You've got a large opportunity in Mongolia. What does that look like?
Well, so Babayol, our flagship license, 81,000 hectares for our listeners here today, if you're Canadian-centric or otherwise. It's about 70 kilometers wide by 16 kilometers tall. So in the city of Vancouver, a very significant license. In fact, the largest license that's ever been granted to a public or private entity by the government of Mongolia. So that speaks to a few different things. One, our relationship with government, but also the scale of this license, I think, should be highlighted. We started exploration there at a very high level. We did some auger drilling. Auger drilling allows you to scratch the surface. And one has to consider that you're operating in Mongolia, a country that Ion Energy is a first mover in, does not perhaps include the necessary skill set from a hydrogeological sampling perspective or lithium brine exploration perspective. And so we did this auger program shortly after going public. We did some geophysics, we did some CSAMT, and that allowed us to come to 1,502 PPM at White Wolf, which is a very, very prospective target on Pavayol. And then you have to look at the secondary things that we've done as a company. And we have since, going public in August 2020, completed a bought deal that was run by PI Financial and co-led by Stifel GMP. And we were able to raise a fair bit of capital there on the back of what is ultimately this clean, green energy revolution that we're seeing today. And that capital allowed us to acquire a secondary asset in the country by the name of Burgas Naran. The team consists of individuals that are world-class, to say the least, including Dr. Mark King, who was the qualified person at Neo Lithium when they sold to Zijin last year for about $960 million. So we put together the team. We've acquired a number of assets. It allows us to execute on our exploration programs and plans. But more importantly, I think the value that we continue to add is threefold. One, the fact that we are located a mere kilometers from the largest consumer on the planet, that being China. Two, the fact that we're moving towards this clean, green energy revolution, which is quite important. And we're seeing governments around the world put money with respect to ensuring that does occur, allows us to operate, for the third sort of statement here, allows us to operate in a jurisdiction that we've been successful in since 2009. So we've had multiple successes in terms of one exit from a coal company, one production company, Steppe Gold, and now ION looking to acquire as many lithium-bearing licenses as possible. But the footprint that is associated with ultimately allowing us to have this revolution. So the vast majority of lithium that is consumed on the planet is consumed by China. That's about 53%. In terms of battery manufacturing, you're between 75 and 83%, and that occurs in China as well. But the vast majority of the lithium on the planet is being shipped from LATAM as well as Australia into China. We are, as I said, a mere number of kilometers from that sort of consumption machine. And so we can not only provide the raw materials that are necessary for this revolution, but we can reduce the carbon footprint significantly with respect to providing those elements.
That's huge, and what you just said there made me think of something with in economics, the supply and demand. So the demand is there. You just mentioned that. Talk a little bit about the supply, because on your website you say that there's an untapped and unlimited potential for lithium. So we want to balance that supply and demand balance. So the demand is there, but talk a little bit about the untapped and unlimited supply potential.
Of course. And that sort of touches on the amount of the country of Mongolia that has been explored, right? You look at a country that's 1.5 million square kilometers with very little exploration across it. The untapped potential is the fact that the vast majority of the country has not been explored. Lithium is something that is relatively new to the markets. You have 5 to 10 million ounce gold deposits in Mongolia. You have Rio Tinto, that has the third largest copper gold mine in the world operating in Mongolia by the name of Oyu Tolgoi. So Mongolia is a resource-rich country that lies within the Asian Endorheic Basin. If you were to look at the geological structures, both in terms of fault lines and volcanic rock that exists on surface, you look at rainfall, it is quite sparse with respect to the Gobi, where we operate today. And you would find that if you were to draw similarities between the Atacama and where we're located, the snowfall and the cold temperatures allow you to leach the lithium out of the volcanic rock. Yes, we are at lower elevations, which means that evaporation cycles will be a bit longer than they would be in the Atacama, but we believe Mongolia to be an untapped and unlimited resource, as you've rightly pointed out.
Yes, excellent. So I know that as with anything, any product or service or industry sector, there's competition. So you're not the only lithium exploration mining company. What is one of the value props that you guys bring to the market that separates you from your competition?
Great question, Mike. And Mongolia, in terms of lithium exploration, there's been a fair bit of drilling sort of close to Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital up in the north. And that was very prospective in terms of hard rock lithium. And some of the grades that were seen there were quite promising. And when you look at what makes a commercial lithium operation successful, you have to consider that you require not only a good grade, but you require a resource, right? So you could have 3 million tons, and that's fantastic, but life of mine there is quite small, and it may not be considered a commercially viable operation in terms of what is being sort of looked at by the majors around the world. With ION, we are first movers in the brine space, so nobody else has gone out to Mongolia looking for brine. We look for brine on the back of the Endoveric Basin as well as the drainage basins in the region. Obviously, we found a number of sort of salt pans on surface. We've seen a fair bit of concentration. Bavayul was very exciting with 1,502 ppm in clays and evaporites down to 6 meters, of which we are planning a more detailed exploration program. But Urgat Naran, I think, for us is an asset that mirrors or replicates in terms of fundamentals what you might expect to look for in the lithium triangle, so be it Bolivia, Chile, or Argentina. And on the back of the last site visit, we were there, my technical team, as I introduced earlier. And we've seen results close to surface of 918 milligrams per liter on natural salt flats, natural evaporation ponds. And that in itself is extremely exciting. So proximity again to market makes it quite a compelling story in terms of the rally in the equity prices, if you will. You look at a number of our peers that operate in LATAM that have had the skill set technically to allow their projects to advance, have had a bit of a run here, whereas we have opted to conserve shareholder capital to ensure we're doing things right the first time around. And the fact that we are funded for our exploration programs and we are in a position where we can deploy the capital to better understand our assets, strategics in the region, to have them partner with us to better understand our assets is obviously a strategic advantage that we have relative to our peers.
Yeah, when you mentioned the competitive advantage, I wanted to bring up the fact that when you won such a huge contract, your team had to be vetted and super strong. What differentiates you as a leader?
What I would say is that I'm an individual that continues to surround myself with individuals that will fill knowledge gaps that I potentially may have. One has to be humble. One has to understand that we know a certain amount of things, but there's always a gap. Not everybody knows everything. And so what I did early days before we went public is I partnered with the likes of Paul Fornazzari. We lead the LATAM Global Mining Group. He was the original chairman at Lithium Americas, now valued at over $5 billion. But he was also a founding director at Neo Lithium and the lawyer on file that ultimately sold Neo Lithium to Zijin for $960 million. With that in mind, these are individuals that are vastly considered pioneers in terms of the brine space. I brought in Don Haynes, an individual that has worked on not only the brine space, but also the hard rock space. And he understands the clays and evaporites. I mean, you look at Bacanora in Mexico and what they're doing there. Don's had a vast amount of experience understanding those assets. I brought in Dr. Mark King, an individual that was the qualified person at Lithium when they exited to Digit. So you build a team around you.
Yes.
That educational gap. And as far as intellectual capital is concerned, my background is very much getting out there, both from an asset management perspective, but also a program management perspective, solving issues and bringing the right people to the table that allows you to be successful. And between Mark, Paul, and Don, I believe we have that team. And having Mark and Don on site when we collected that sample at 918 milligrams per liter puts us in a position that I'm excited about. I wake up each morning and, well before my alarm clock goes off and keep on cracking on, if you will.
It reminds me of the old story or fable, maybe even if it's not exactly true, about Henry Ford, who was being asked all these questions about his companies, and he was like, I don't know, but with one push of a button, I can bring in the team, and they know, and I've surrounded myself with experts. Well, everyone that you just mentioned in their area of expertise, Ali Haji does not need to know everything about everything, because then you would never be an expert in your specific area of expertise. But when you bring that brain trust together, that collaboration, that amplifies and makes everything greater than the sum of its parts.
Precisely correct. And I think, I'm not going to pretend to know things about hydrogeological sampling or what would be a good chemical ratio, which obviously I've had to learn over the last 5 years. And I do understand those aspects of the business quite well. But would I consider myself an expert? Absolutely not. Yeah. What I have done is brought in people that understand the intricacies and the nuances, and they've been able to really not only guide, but also that they've seen as independent, drawing salary, independent individuals that are purely part of the journey because of their interest, and to see them extremely encouraged by what we've seen on the ground, in country, and through assay results, I think speaks volumes.
Yes. Well, Ali, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. You've got such an exciting projects going and great things on the horizon. What's the best way someone can reach out and learn more about Ion Energy and connect with you?
Of course. I'm one of those rare individuals that answers my phone irrespective of the number on screen. So you will find my contact details on the website, www.ionenergy.ca. We trade on the TSX Venture. We trade on the OTCQB. We're also in Frankfurt. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my email address is ali@ionenergy.ca. Get in touch. Would love to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, Ali, thank you for coming on. I wish you all the best and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.